Blood turned the white sheets dark red as morning light crept into the bedroom. No one broke in. The front door was still unlocked. Keisha Taylor lay still, her eyes open but seeing nothing, while the ceiling fan kept turning above her. Her husband Jamal, who once said he would always keep her safe, was gone. Their family photo was missing from the wall. Their kids were at their grandma's house, not knowing their world had already fallen apart. What makes a loving husband turn on his wife? How quickly can trust break when doubt takes root? The answer lies in what happened in this bedroom on a quiet September morning, where Keisha Taylor's life ended at the hands of the man who once called her his everything. Welcome to True Crime Atlas. I thank you, my viewers, most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing daily told and untold true crime stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Keisha Taylor was born on April 23, 1988, in Georgia. Everyone who knew her talked about her smile, big, warm, and real. She had a way of making people feel like they mattered, whether they were family or strangers she just met. With deep brown eyes and a voice that made people stop and listen, Keisha connected with others easily. Her parents came to Georgia from Jamaica in the early 1980s, settling in a mostly black neighborhood where hard work and education were highly valued. Both her mom and dad worked in healthcare jobs, often taking extra shifts to make sure Keisha and her sister had everything they needed. By the time she was 10, Keisha knew she wanted to help people the way her parents did. Friends from school remember Keisha as the peacemaker, the girl who stopped fights before they started and made sure no one ate lunch alone. She kept this same caring nature when she became a nurse, finishing at the top of her class at Georgia State University in 2010. She chose to work with sick children at Memorial Hospital, where other nurses said she could calm even the most scared kids with her gentle touch and kind words. Outside of work, Keisha sang in the choir at New Hope Baptist Church, where her voice filled the room every Sunday morning. On Wednesday nights, she ran a program for teenage girls at the community center, teaching them about college, careers, and loving themselves in a world that often tried to make them feel small. In her free time, she grew flowers in her backyard garden, talking to each plant like it could hear her. She believed people could change. Her mother later told the police, wiping tears from her face. She always looked for the good in everyone, even when others couldn't see it. This belief in people's better nature made what happened to her even more heartbreaking. Jamal Taylor was born on July 17, 1985, in the south side of Atlanta. His mom raised him alone, working as a hotel cleaner, cashier, and night security guard just to keep food on the table. While other kids had summer trips and Christmas presents, Jamal had house keys around his neck and learned to cook his own dinner by age 7. Teachers noticed early that Jamal was smart and focused, but he didn't make friends easily. He wasn't mean or angry, just quiet, like he was saving his energy for more important things. His life changed when Coach Wilson spotted him shooting hoops alone and invited him to join the school team. For the first time, Jamal found something he was good at, something that made people notice him for the right reasons. The Navy recruited him right after high school in 2003, offering the structure and purpose his childhood never had. For 8 years, Jamal served his country, completing 3 tours overseas. Military life shaped him into someone who thrived on rules and order. His commanders described him as rock solid, and the guy you want beside you in a crisis. Words that would sound strange to anyone who knew what he would do years later. After leaving the Navy with honors in 2011, Jamal returned to Georgia with savings and plans for a better life. He got a good job as a security expert for businesses in Atlanta, bought a small house and settled into the stability he never had growing up. He went to church on Sundays, worked out at the gym on weekdays, and met with other veterans once a month to help with the move back to regular life. People who knew Jamal called him steady, thoughtful, and serious. He didn't laugh often, but when he did, it transformed his whole face. He listened more than he talked, remembered small details others forgot, and carried himself like a man who knew exactly who he was. What no one saw, maybe not even Jamal himself, was how much he needed to be in control. Control of his home, control of his future, control of his trust. Keisha and Jamal met on a hot Sunday in June 2012, when the air conditioning broke at New Hope Baptist during morning service. Everyone was fanning themselves with church programs as Pastor Lewis tried to keep his sermon short. After the service, Jamal, still new to the church, helped set up fans in the basement for lunch. While carrying an extension cord, he bumped into a table and knocked over a bowl of peach cobbler that landed right on Keisha's white dress. Instead of getting upset, Keisha laughed, a real deep laugh that caught Jamal off guard. "Well," she said, looking down at her stained dress. "I was planning to go shopping anyway." Her easy smile broke through Jamal's serious expression. Their first date was the next weekend. A walk through the garden park, followed by ice cream cones that melted too fast in the Georgia heat. They talked for hours, finding they shared many of the same values, despite their different backgrounds. Both believed in helping their community, in faith, and in building something that would last. Keisha loved Jamal's calm strength. Jamal was drawn to her open warmth, so different from his own careful nature. She brought light into his world. Michelle Johnson, Keisha's best friend since high school, later told the court. Before her, Jamal was all about plans and order. She showed him how to enjoy the unexpected moments. For his part, Jamal gave Keisha something she didn't know she needed: steady support that balanced her giving nature, and a quiet presence that made her feel truly seen. Their relationship grew with care and respect. When Jamal left for his final Navy tour 5 months after they met, they wrote letters that crossed oceans. Keisha sent packages with homemade cookies and pictures of everyday life back home. Fall leaves, church events, her sister's new baby. Jamal sent her pressed flowers from countries she'd never visited, with notes explaining what each place was like. When he returned in early 2013, Jamal proposed during Sunday dinner at Keisha's parents' house. He gave her not just a ring but a wooden box he'd carved himself during long nights on the ship, made to hold the letters and small gifts they'd exchanged. They married that November in a ceremony that filled the church. Jamal's Navy friends stood next to Keisha's childhood neighbors, 2 different worlds coming together as one. Their first home was a small brick house in that Jamal had fixed up himself, turning the old rooms into a bright space that felt like both of them, his clean lines and her warm colors. Neighbors soon knew them as important parts of the community. Jamal coaching the youth basketball team, Keisha organizing meals for new moms and elderly folks who couldn't cook. Their house became the place where family gathered for holidays and friends stopped by for Sunday dinner without calling first. 2 years after the wedding, they welcomed their daughter Zora, who had her father's serious eyes and her mother's quick smile. 3 years later came their son Devon, a curious, energetic boy who tested Jamal's love of order, but made him laugh more than anyone. Family photos lined their hallway, beach trips, first steps, birthday parties, showing the life they built together, one day at a time. They worked at their marriage. Pastor Lewis, who also did marriage counseling, later said in court, "They came in once a year just to check in, not because they had problems. They treated their relationship the way they treated their home and careers, with care and attention." From the outside, the Taylors had a strong marriage that many people admired. What no one could see were the small shifts happening underneath. Changes neither Jamal nor Keisha fully noticed until they had already weakened what they built. The first small cracks in their marriage showed up so slowly that neither one saw them as warning signs. In summer 2022, Jamal's security company took on several big new clients, making his work days longer and adding weekend trips out of town. The regular family routines that kept their home life steady started slipping away. Keisha handled more household duties on top of her already busy hospital shifts. Small feelings of being taken for granted started to build up: missed family dinners, canceled date nights, holiday planning that fell all on Keisha's shoulders. At the same time, Keisha's job at Memorial grew to include training new nurses, adding paperwork to her already emotionally hard job, caring for sick children. She started bringing work home, often staying up late after the kids went to bed to finish reports or make training materials. The couple who once made time to talk about everything now barely saw each other, mostly just exchanging quick updates about schedules and kid activities. "I'm just trying to keep my head above water," Keisha told her sister Monique during a rare lunch break in August 2022. "And I don't think Jamal even notices how tired I am." What she didn't say, what she barely admitted to herself, was the growing feeling that something important was changing between them, a distance measured not in feet, but in things left unsaid. When Jamal's childhood friend Marcus Wilson moved back to Georgia in September 2022 after a rough divorce, the tension found a way to grow faster. Marcus had known Jamal since they were teenagers in the same tough neighborhood, and his views on relationships had turned bitter after his ex-wife cheated on him. During weekend basketball games and beers on Jamal's back porch, Marcus often made comments about marriage that seeped into conversations like slow poison. "Women change, man," he would say, shaking his head. "One day they're all in, the next they're planning their exit strategy. You think you know someone until you don't." At first, Jamal brushed these comments off, secure in what he and Keisha had built together. But as the space between them grew, as Keisha's late-night texts went unanswered, and her work friendships with male doctors extended beyond the hospital, Marcus's words found a place in Jamal's growing doubts. In November 2022, the Taylor family went to Thanksgiving dinner at Keisha's parents' home. What should have been a happy family time instead became a turning point when Jamal overheard Keisha laughing with her cousin about men who can't handle strong women. Though not aimed at him, the comment stuck in his mind, feeding his worries about their changing relationship. The drive home was silent, and that silence lasted for days, with barely any real talking beyond necessary information about the kids' schedules. By January 2023, friends and family noticed the change between them. The easy physical affection that had always been part of their relationship, holding hands during church, quick kisses in the kitchen, had disappeared. They talked when other people were around, but rarely when alone. Jamal began checking Keisha's phone when she was in the shower, reading her messages and call history, finding nothing wrong but seeing innocent conversations through increasingly suspicious eyes. Keisha, feeling him pull away but misunderstanding why, tried harder to reconnect. She planned a weekend trip for their anniversary in February, only to have Jamal cancel at the last minute because of work. She suggested they see Pastor Lewis for counseling in March, which Jamal attended twice before saying his schedule was too full to continue. Each failed attempt to fix things made her more afraid that they had drifted too far apart. What neither of them faced was how badly their communication had broken down. Questions that should have been direct became hidden accusations. Explanations that should have been honest turned into defensive answers. The trust that had supported their relationship for over 10 years developed cracks too big to ignore but too scary to talk about. On August 15, 2023, Keisha got an unexpected call from Andre Taylor, Jamal's older brother. The brothers hadn't spoken in 3 years after a fight about money borrowed and promises broken. Jamal had deleted Andre's number, removed him from family photos, and refused to talk about him even with Keisha. Andre's sudden call, even from a distance. Andre wanted to make peace, to apologize, and to be part of Jamal's 40th birthday in September. More surprisingly, he wanted to help plan it. Jamal deserves something special, he told Keisha during that first call. Let me do this one thing right. Against her better judgment but hoping for healing between the brothers, Keisha agreed to work with Andre on a surprise party. What followed were weeks of secret planning, phone calls made during hospital breaks, text messages deleted right after reading, meetings explained as extra work shifts or quick errands. Keisha booked the back room at Jamal's favorite restaurant, contacted his Navy friends to fly in for the weekend, and worked with Andre to create a custom cake designed like Jamal's high school basketball jersey. Every detail was chosen with love, every secret kept with hope for joy when it was finally revealed. On September 1st, Keisha took $2,000 from their shared savings account to pay deposits for the venue and food. When Jamal questioned the withdrawal, she gave a vague answer about a church project she'd explain later. It was the first direct lie she had ever told him in their marriage. Small by itself, but important in what it represented. A break in their usual honesty that, added to her increasingly secret behavior, confirmed Jamal's darkest fears. That same week, Marcus saw Keisha talking with Andre outside a coffee shop across town, a meeting he saw by complete chance but told Jamal about with serious concern. They looked real comfortable together, Marcus mentioned casually. Didn't know they were even talking. He didn't directly suggest she was cheating. He didn't need to. The seed was already planted. This observation just watered it. By mid-September, the distance between Jamal and Keisha had turned into something colder, harder, a wall neither knew how to climb over. Jamal withdrew more into silence, spending late hours in his home office, skipping family dinners to eat alone while reviewing work papers. Keisha continued her frantic planning, now driven less by excitement and more by desperate hope that the surprise might somehow fix what was breaking between them. On September 18th, the night before the planned surprise, Keisha went to a final walkthrough at the restaurant with Andre. When Jamal called looking for her, she said she was helping Michelle with a family emergency. The lie came easier this time, justified by its supposedly good intentions. She got home late, tired but secretly excited for the next day's revelation that would explain everything. That night, while Keisha slept, Jamal sat alone in their dark living room, looking through weeks of phone records, mapping patterns of calls and texts that matched her unexplained absences. His military training in spotting threats now turned against his own marriage, finding proof in innocent interactions, building stories from disconnected events. By morning, the man who had once promised to protect Keisha had decided she was the threat to everything he had built. The morning of September 19th started with unusual quiet in the Taylor house. Jamal had called in sick to work, something he almost never did, and arranged for the kids to spend the day with Keisha's parents, saying he wanted to give her a break. Keisha left for her hospital shift at 6:30 a.m., kissing Jamal's forehead as he pretended to sleep, whispering that she had a surprise for him later. It was the last time she would touch him with love. Throughout the day, Jamal's mind spiraled deeper into darkness. He walked through the empty house, looking at photos of their life together, now seeing each smile as possibly fake. He drank steadily from a bottle of whiskey he kept for special occasions, the alcohol making his emotions stronger while making his thinking fuzzy. At 3:42 p.m., he opened Keisha's laptop, knowing her password because she had never thought to hide it from him, and found email confirmations for restaurant bookings, a cake order, and hotel reservations for guests coming to town. This evidence of detailed planning, with his brother's name appearing many times in the emails, hardened his belief. In Jamal's increasingly irrational state, these preparations weren't for a birthday celebration but proof of betrayal. Andre had broken his trust years ago. Now he was taking his wife. The story Jamal created in his mind left no room for other explanations. When Keisha got home at 7:15 p.m., tired from her shift but excited about the next day's surprise, she found Jamal waiting in the kitchen. The knife block on the counter was empty, except for the largest chef's knife, which lay next to his right hand. The whiskey bottle was nearly empty. His eyes, when they met hers, showed no recognition of the woman he had loved for over 10 years. "Tell me about Andre," he said, his voice flat and cold. Keisha's face changed from confusion to fear as she saw what was happening. "Jamal, what's going on? Where are the kids?" "Answer the question," he demanded, his hand closing around the knife handle. "How long has it been going on? How long has what been going on?" Keisha stepped backward toward the hall, her nurse's training automatically checking for signs of drinking, anger, danger. "Jamal, you're scaring me." "I saw the texts," he said, standing now, the knife catching the kitchen light. "I saw you with him. All the secret meetings, the money, the lies. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Understanding dawned on Keisha's face, not fear for herself but heartbreak at how badly he had misunderstood. "Jamal, it's not what you think. It's for your birthday. We've been planning a surprise party. Andre wanted to make things right with you." The words registered but couldn't break through the story Jamal had built in his mind. They sounded like desperate excuses, like more lies on top of weeks of deception. He moved forward, the knife held out in front of him. What followed was chaotic, brutal, and tragically quick. Keisha's medical training gave her the presence of mind to try defensive moves, to reason with him even as she backed toward the front door. But Jamal, the man who had once promised to protect her, now moved with single-minded purpose. The first cut caught her upper arm as she raised it to shield herself. The second found her chest. The third, her throat. When it ended, the kitchen floor was stained with spreading red. Jamal stood over her body, the knife still in his hand, blood on his clothes, his face, his wedding ring. The rage that had driven him drained away suddenly, leaving horror in its wake. He dropped to his knees beside her, tried uselessly to stop the bleeding, called her name over and over. But Keisha Taylor, who had spent her life helping others, was beyond help now. Monique Wallace arrived at the Taylor home at 8:47 a.m. on September 20th. Worried after Keisha failed to pick up her children and wasn't answering calls from the hospital about her missed shift. The front door was unlocked, unusual for the security-conscious family. Calling her sister's name, Monique walked through the quiet house until she reached the kitchen, where the scene that met her eyes made no sense at first. Her scream brought neighbors running. Within minutes, emergency workers flooded the property, but their efforts could do nothing. Keisha Taylor had been dead for nearly 12 hours, her body cold on the kitchen floor. Even more disturbing than the violence itself was the unlocked door, the missing wall of family photographs, and the empty parking space where Jamal's truck should have been. Detective Lisa Morgan of the police department led the investigation, immediately recognizing signs of domestic violence rather than random crime. The scene told a story of rage followed by regret, she later testified. Family photos removed from walls but carefully packed in boxes found in the bedroom closet. Drawers emptied of specific clothing, not ransacked but selectively packed. The victim's wedding ring still on her finger but her husband's missing from the bathroom soap dish where he usually kept it while showering. Police sent out a statewide alert for Jamal Taylor and his black Ford F-150. Bank records showed he withdrew $3,000 from an ATM 3 miles from the house at 11:42 p.m. on September 19th, 4 hours after the estimated time of death. His phone was turned off, but its last signal came from near the highway heading south towards Savannah. As Morgan and her team processed the evidence, they also uncovered the tragic misunderstanding behind the crime. Andre Taylor came forward immediately, providing text messages, email confirmations, and statements about the birthday celebration planned for September 20th. The restaurant manager confirmed the deposit for 40 guests, the custom cake with Jamal's basketball jersey number, the playlist of songs from his high school years that Keisha had carefully selected. Michelle Johnson gave police access to the shared digital folder where Keisha had organized every detail of the surprise, including a heartfelt letter she had written to Jamal about her hopes for reconciliation between the brothers. The folder also contained plans titled Second Honeymoon, outlining a weekend trip she had hoped would help them reconnect after months of growing distance. Most damning was the video found on Keisha's phone, filmed just hours before her death in the hospital break room. In it, she spoke directly to Jamal. "Happy early birthday, babe. By the time you see this, you'll understand all the secrets these past few weeks. I hope you know everything I do. I do because I believe in us. In you. In the family we've built." Her smile in those final moments showed no fear, no idea that the surprise she had planned with such care would cost her everything. Police arrested Jamal Taylor on September 22nd at a roadside motel outside Savannah, Georgia. He didn't fight when state troopers surrounded his room, simply putting his hands behind his back and asking in a hollow voice if his children were safe. The knife used in the killing was found in his truck, cleaned but still carrying tiny traces of Keisha's blood. Also recovered were family albums, children's drawings, and a shoebox containing every letter Keisha had written him during his Navy years. The arraignment took place on September 25th in the county courthouse, the same building where Jamal and Keisha had applied for their marriage license 11 years earlier. The charges were severe: first-degree murder with factors of domestic violence and planning ahead. Jamal said nothing during the hearing beyond a quiet, "Not guilty," that seemed directed more at the floor than the judge. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Regina Williams, built a careful case over the following months. They presented bank records showing the legitimate purpose of withdrawn funds, phone data mapping the planning activities for the surprise party, and testimony from 23 witnesses who confirmed both the birthday preparations and the worsening relationship between the defendant and victim. Most compelling was the evidence from Jamal's own devices, search history showing queries about signs of cheating, wife lying about whereabouts, and catching a cheater. Notes in his phone documented times Keisha left the house, names of male colleagues she mentioned, and suspicious interpretations of innocent conversations. The prosecution painted a picture not of sudden anger, but of calculated suspicion that led to preventable violence. "This is not a crime of sudden impulse," Williams told the jury during opening statements in February 2024. "This is what happens when suspicion replaces trust, when a man decides his darkest thoughts are more believable than the woman who stood beside him for over a decade." Keisha Taylor died because her husband chose to believe the worst instead of asking for the truth. The defense strategy, while acknowledging Jamal's responsibility for the act itself, focused on his mental state at the time of the killing. Dr. James Bryant, a psychiatrist specializing in military veterans, testified about how Jamal's training in threat assessment, combined with trust issues from childhood abandonment, created a perfect storm of paranoid thinking. They showed evidence of increasing alcohol use in the months before the murder and pointed to Marcus Wilson's toxic influence as a contributing factor. Jamal Taylor is guilty of taking his wife's life, defense attorney Michael Harris admitted in his opening statement. "What we're asking you to consider is whether he understood the reality of his actions at the time they occurred. This is a tragedy born of delusion, not hatred, of a mind so consumed by unfounded suspicion that it could no longer tell the difference between fear and fact." The trial lasted 17 days, each hour a fresh wound for families on both sides of the courtroom. Zora and Devin Taylor, now living with Keisha's parents, were kept away from proceedings, but their absence was felt by everyone in the room. Photographs of them were kept out of evidence by the judge's decision, their future privacy considered more important than their relevance to the case. Most difficult for many observers was Jamal's testimony in his own defense. 5 hours of halting, tear-filled memories that showed both regret and continued confusion. He spoke of loving Keisha more than my own life, while also describing the distorted thinking that led him to end hers. When asked directly why he hadn't simply confronted her about his suspicions before that fatal evening, his answer revealed the tragic heart of the case. Because I was afraid she would tell me it was true. After 4 days of discussion, the jury returned on March 7, 2024, with their verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. The reduction from first degree reflected their acceptance that while Jamal acted with intent to kill, the crime lacked the cool planning that would have supported the higher charge. He stood motionless as the verdict was read, his face showing neither relief nor surprise, as if he had already judged himself long before the court reached its decision. The sentencing hearing 3 weeks later brought final statements from both families. Monique Wallace addressed the court first, holding a photograph of Keisha in her nurse's scrubs. "My sister spent her life helping people," she said, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. She believed in second chances, in forgiveness, in seeing the good in others even when they couldn't see it themselves. The greatest tragedy is not just that she died, but that she died at the hands of the person she trusted most to protect her. No sentence this court can give will bring her back to her children, who now must grow up knowing that their father killed their mother. Jamal's mother spoke briefly, apologizing to Keisha's family while asking for mercy for her son. "2 families are broken," she said. "2 children have effectively lost both parents. The weight of what Jamal did will follow him every day for the rest of his life, no matter where he serves his sentence." Judge Evelyn Thomas considered these statements alongside the jury's recommendation before delivering her decision. The court sentences Jamal Taylor to 25 years in the Georgia State Prison, with possibility of parole after serving 18 years, she announced. Additionally, the defendant will complete mental health treatment while in prison and will give up all parental rights to his children, with visits to be determined by their legal guardians and child welfare professionals as the children grow older. Before officers led him away, Jamal was allowed a final statement. He turned not toward the judge but toward Keisha's parents, who sat holding hands in the front row. "I have no right to ask forgiveness," he said, his voice barely audible in the silent courtroom. "What I took from you, from my children, from this world, can never be fixed. Every day I wake up and for a moment, I forget what I've done. Then I remember, and that moment of forgetting becomes another punishment. I will spend whatever life I have left trying to understand how I betrayed everything I once believed in, everything Keisha believed in, everything we built together." As Jamal Taylor begins his prison sentence, 2 children grow up in a home filled with pictures of the mother they lost and carefully edited stories about the father who took her from them. In time, they will ask harder questions, seek fuller truths, and face the complex legacy of love that came before violence. The tragedy of Keisha and Jamal Taylor forces us to think about uncomfortable questions about trust, about the stories we tell ourselves when fear takes over, about how quickly certainty can fall apart. What makes this case so haunting is not that it's unusual but that it's ordinary, the recognizable humanity of both victim and killer, the small misunderstandings that grew into disaster, the reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers come not from dramatic betrayals, but from simple failures to communicate. Perhaps most disturbing is seeing that trust, once broken, can shatter in all directions, cutting not just the person who broke it, but everyone within reach of its sharp edges. What might have happened if Jamal had asked one direct question instead of feeding his suspicion? What if he had trusted the evidence of 15 years rather than the whispers of recent doubt? We cannot know these other endings, just as we cannot undo what fear has already destroyed. We can only witness, remember, and perhaps learn to see the warning signs in our own lives before they lead us down similarly destructive paths. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of a tragedy that reminds us how fragile trust can be and how important to protect. Please don't forget to subscribe to True Crime Atlas for more stories that challenge us to examine the darkest corners of human behavior.